I didn't find out my husband was stealing from me through a confession. I found out because my phone buzzed with an alert for a credit card I never opened. By the time I realized what he'd done in my name, my trust was already maxed out. And so was the card. What I did next ended my marriage and rewrote his future. If you've ever been betrayed by the one person who was supposed to protect you, subscribe right now. Like this video, because this isn't just a revenge story, it's a story about taking your power back the right way. And as you listen, tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Let's get into it. I used to think financial betrayal was something that happened to other people. The cautionary tales you read on Reddit at 2 a.m., the daytime TV confessionals. Not women like me, married, careful, organized, trusting. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how the man I loved turned my identity into his personal ATM. My husband, Mark, and I had been together for 7 years, married for 4. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, one of those summer afternoons where the sun stays golden until 9 p.m. and everything feels possible. He was standing by the grill, telling a story that had 3 people laughing so hard they were crying. I remember thinking he had kind eyes, the kind that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. Our courtship was slow and steady, coffee dates that turned into dinner dates, weekends hiking trails we found on apps. He met my parents on month 5, I met his on month 6. His mother told me I was good for him, that he seemed calmer with me around. I took that as the compliment it was meant to be. We moved in together after a year and a half, a small 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that was gentrifying just enough to feel safe, but not so much that we couldn't afford it. We adopted a cat from the shelter, a gray tabby we named Pepper because Mark said she had spice. We talked about kids someday, after we'd saved enough, after his career stabilized, after. We weren't flashy, but we were stable. Bills paid on time, always. Joint savings account that we contributed to every month without fail. Separate checking accounts, sure. We'd both been independent adults before we met, and neither of us saw a reason to change that. But full transparency. Or so I thought. I handled the big picture finances. I set up our budget spreadsheets, tracked our retirement contributions, monitored our credit scores. Mark handled day-to-day stuff, groceries, utilities, his own subscriptions. It worked. We worked. He was charming in a quiet way, not loud or flashy, not controlling, the kind of man who'd say, "I'll handle it," when the dishwasher started making that grinding noise, and you believed him because he always had. He fixed things. He remembered to pick up my prescription refills. He texted me photos of Pepper sleeping in sunbeams while I was at work. Looking back now, I wonder how many red flags I missed because I was too busy being grateful. Until one Tuesday afternoon in March. I was standing in line at the grocery store, one of those massive suburban stores where you go in for milk and come out with $60 worth of things you didn't know you needed. My cart had the usual: spinach that I'd feel virtuous about buying and guilty about wasting, Greek yogurt, the expensive coffee beans Mark liked, chicken breasts for meal prep I was only 70% sure I'd actually do. The line was long. The cashier was training someone new. I was scrolling through my phone with that particular brand of impatience that comes from being 15 minutes behind schedule for absolutely no important reason. Then my phone vibrated. Credit alert. New account opened in your name. At first, I assumed it was spam. I got those sometimes, phishing attempts disguised as security alerts, trying to get you to click suspicious links. I almost swiped it away. Then I saw the issuer's name. A major bank. One of the big ones, with branches on every corner, one we'd never used together. My chest tightened. The woman in front of me was arguing about an expired coupon. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere a child was crying, but all I could hear was the sudden rush of blood in my ears. I logged into my credit monitoring app with hands that suddenly felt clumsy, like they weren't mine. The app took forever to load, or maybe it was just that time had stopped meaning anything. And there it was. A brand new credit card account, opened 2 weeks ago, under my name, Sarah Michelle Foster, with a balance already climbing past $4,000. I remember the exact physical sensation, that hollow drop in your stomach, like missing a step in the dark, like the floor isn't where you thought it was. My thoughts raced ahead of my breath. This has to be a mistake, a clerical error. Someone with a similar name. Someone stole my identity. This can't be real. This can't be him. The cashier called next 3 times before I realized she meant me. I paid for my groceries without remembering how. My hands moved through the motions. Card inserted, PIN entered, receipt taken. Autopilot. The new cashier smiled at me brightly. I think I smiled back. I'm not sure. I loaded bags into my car, drove home, didn't turn on music, didn't call anyone, just sat with the sound of my own breathing and the tick-tick-tick of the turn signal I'd forgotten to turn off. I sat in my car in our assigned parking spot for 10 full minutes before going inside, just staring at the steering wheel like it might explain things, like the answer might be hidden in the worn leather, in the faint coffee stain from last Tuesday. When I finally went inside, Mark was on the couch. Laptop open, pepper curled against his thigh, some documentary about deep-sea creatures playing on the TV. He looked so normal, so innocent, so much like the man I'd chosen to build a life with. For a moment, I considered saying nothing, just checking on my own, solving it myself, keeping the peace. But we'd promised each other honesty, no secrets, no matter how uncomfortable. I set the grocery bags on the counter. He glanced up. Hey, did you remember the good coffee? I had. It was in bag number 3. When I finally spoke, my voice sounded strange to me, too controlled, too calm. Hey, did you open a new credit card recently? He didn't even look up from his laptop. No? One word. Flat. Immediate. Like I'd asked him if he wanted marinara or Alfredo. I watched his face closely. No hesitation, no confusion, no, oh wait, let me check my wallet moment. Just dismissal. That was when something shifted. I didn't push, not then. I just nodded and started putting groceries away with hands that trembled so slightly, I'm sure he didn't notice. That night, while he slept beside me, breathing slow and peaceful, one arm thrown over my pillow the way he always slept, I lay awake. Our bedroom was dark except for the blue glow of the alarm clock, 2:17 a.m., 2:42 a.m., 3:08 a.m. I replayed every odd moment from the past year. The Amazon packages that arrived when I was at work. When I asked about them, he always had an explanation. Replacement headphones, a gift for his brother, something for the house. I never pressed. Why would I? We were married. We trusted each other. The sudden insistence on handling financial stuff. He offered to take over bill payments 3 months ago, said he wanted to help me out since I was stressed at work. I'd been grateful. One less thing to manage. The way he brushed off conversations about credit scores. I'd mentioned wanting to check ours before we started seriously house hunting. He'd said later so many times that I'd stopped asking. The extra hours at work he'd been putting in, or said he was putting in. By 4 a.m., I'd constructed and deconstructed a dozen different explanations. Maybe he was planning a surprise. Maybe it was a mistake and he didn't know yet. Maybe I was overreacting. But that flat no kept echoing. He knew. He knew exactly what I was asking, and he lied without blinking. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Mark left for the office at 7:30, kissing my forehead and telling me to rest, to drink fluids. I waited until I heard his car pull away before I moved. I called the bank. The hold music was soft, cheerful, and cruel. Some instrumental version of a pop song I couldn't quite place. Every 30 seconds, a recorded voice assured me my call was very important to them. When the representative finally came on, she sounded young and chipper. Thank you for calling. This is Jessica. How can I provide you with excellent service today? I'd rehearsed what to say, but the words still came out stilted. I received an alert about a new credit card account in my name, but I didn't open it. Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that. Let me look into this for you right away. She verified my identity. Name, address, last 4 of my social security number, mother's maiden name. Each answer felt like handing over another piece of myself. Then she confirmed everything I feared. Yes, I see the account here. It was opened on March 3rd. Would you like me to go over the account details? Please. The card was opened using your social security number, your current address, and your income information. The contact email on file is... She read it out. Mark's email address, his personal Gmail, the one he'd had since college. And the card is currently being used? My voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Yes, ma'am. The current balance is $4,287.63. There have been 11 transactions in the past 2 weeks. I felt heat rise up my neck. Not explosive anger, but something colder, sharper. The kind of rage that doesn't scream, it calculates. Can you tell me what the purchases were? She rattled them off. Electronics, high-end headphones, a leather jacket, restaurant charges at places we'd never been together, an online poker site, gift purchases from a jewelry store. Nothing for me, nothing for us, everything for him. Was this account opened in person or online? Online, from a device logged in to the email on file. The application was submitted at 11:47 p.m. on March 2nd. March 2nd. I'd been at my sister's that night for her birthday dinner. I told him I'd be home late. He'd said, "No problem, enjoy yourself." While I was singing happy birthday and eating cake, he was filling out a credit application in my name. I thanked Jessica, hung up, and sat there in silence. The apartment was so quiet, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. Pepper wandered in and meowed, probably wanting breakfast. I fed her mechanically, watching the kibble tumble into her bowl while my mind raced. I wanted him to come clean. I wanted remorse, panic, something human, some sign that the man I loved was still in there somewhere. So that night, I gave him one more chance. He came home at his usual time, 6:15. He was humming. I'd spent the day researching, taking notes, calling credit bureaus, but I'd also cleaned the apartment and started dinner. I needed everything to seem normal. I needed to see his face when he couldn't hide anymore. We ate first. I'd made his favorite, garlic butter chicken with roasted potatoes. We talked about his day, my fictitious sick day, whether we should finally replace the couch. Normal conversation. Rehearsed normalcy. After dinner, I cleared the plates, made coffee, brought 2 mugs to the table. Then I placed my phone on the table between us, turned the screen toward him. The credit card account was pulled up, balance displayed in bold numbers. Explain this. His face drained of color, actually drained. I watched the blood leave his cheeks in real time. His eyes darted from the phone to my face and back again. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. For a moment, I thought he might finally apologize, that he might break down and confess and beg for forgiveness. Instead, he sighed, a long, put-upon sigh, like I'd caught him leaving dishes in the sink. "Okay, but don't freak out." That sentence ended our marriage, even if it took months to finalize. He told me he'd needed the card temporarily, that it was easier to use my credit because his had some issues from a few years ago, that he planned to pay it off before I ever noticed, that he was going to tell me eventually, that it wasn't a big deal, as if the betrayal was a scheduling problem. I asked him why he didn't ask me. My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. He shrugged, actually shrugged. You would have said no. There it was. Not desperation, not survival, not even shame. Entitlement. He'd stolen my identity because asking was inconvenient. I asked about the purchases, the poker site, the jewelry. He got defensive then, said I was being controlling, that he was allowed to have things, that marriages require trust. He actually said that marriages require trust, while sitting across from me, having committed identity fraud. I asked about the jewelry. He hesitated, then admitted it was for someone at work. "Just a friend," he said. "You're overreacting." The coffee I'd made went cold while he talked. He kept talking, words spilling out, excuses, justifications, minimizations. It wasn't that much money. He was going to pay it back. I was making it into a bigger thing than it was. Why was I always so paranoid about finances? I let him finish. Then I stood up. "I'm sleeping in the guest room." "Come on, Sarah, don't be like that." But I was already walking away. That night, I didn't cry. I thought I would. I'd always been a crier. Sad movies, frustration at work, touching commercials. But no tears came. Instead, I researched. Quietly, methodically. The way I'd researched wedding venues and mortgage rates and vacation destinations. I learned that what he did wasn't just unethical, it was a crime: identity theft under federal law, credit card fraud. Each search result confirmed what I already knew in my gut. This was serious. I found forums, other people's stories, women mostly, who discovered spouses had destroyed their credit. Some had lost jobs because background checks revealed debts they didn't know existed. Some had been denied apartments, car loans, mortgages. Some were still paying off balances years later because they'd been too afraid or too guilty to report their own partners. I found one comment that stuck with me. "He didn't worry about ruining your life. Why are you worried about ruining his?" At 3 a.m., I called the bank again. The overnight representative was less chipper but more efficient. "If you didn't authorize this account, you need to report it as fraud." Even if it was my husband. A pause. Then, gently, "Ma'am, identity theft is identity theft. It doesn't matter who committed it." I called a credit bureau next, filed a fraud alert. They asked if I wanted to freeze my credit. I said yes. Then I called a legal aid hotline. The lawyer who answered sounded tired but kind. She'd clearly heard this story before. "Let me guess," she said. "You're worried about what happens to him if you report it." "Yes, but he wasn't worried about what would happen to you when he did it." I'd been trained, like so many women, to soften consequences, to protect, to smooth things over, to consider everyone's feelings except my own. "He didn't mean it. He's your husband. This will ruin his life. What will people think? Can't you just work it out?" But he hadn't worried about ruining mine. The next morning, I made the calls. Police report first. I drove to the station, sat in a plastic chair in a fluorescent-lit room, and told my story to Officer Martinez. She was probably 10 years younger than me, but she nodded with the weariness of someone who'd seen this too many times. She said, "We'll need documentation from the credit card company, and you'll need to file a fraud affidavit." I watched my hands sign my name on form after form. Steady, certain. When the investigation started, everything unraveled fast. The bank froze the account within 24 hours. Mark called me at work, furious. "What did you do?" I reported fraud. "Sarah, we can fix this. You didn't need to." "You stole from me. I'm your husband," which makes it worse, not better. He hung up on me. It was the first time in 7 years he'd ever done that. The detective assigned to the case was thorough. She pulled transaction records, IP addresses, timestamps. The application had been filed from our home computer. The purchases were made from his phone, his laptop, his locations. When she came to take his statement, I was there. I wanted to see his face. He tried charm first, explained it was a misunderstanding, that we were working it out, that I was upset, but we'd get past it. She wasn't having it. "Sir, did you or did you not open a credit card account using your wife's personal information without her knowledge or consent?" He looked at me, actually looked at me, like I might save him. I looked back. "Yes," he finally said, "but—" "There's no but," the detective said. The card issuer closed all of his accounts, not just the fraudulent one, but his legitimate ones too. His credit score tanked. The fraud alert I'd placed meant he couldn't open new accounts anywhere. Then his employer found out. He worked for a financial services company, not high level, but customer-facing, the kind of job where a clean background check was required, where trust was part of the job description. They put him on administrative leave pending the investigation. Suddenly, the man who thought rules were optional were drowning in them. The day he moved out, the apartment felt lighter, quieter, like I could finally breathe all the way down into my lungs again. He took his clothes, his laptop, his half of the furniture we'd bought together. He left Pepper, said he couldn't take care of a cat right now. I think we both knew that was about more than logistics. Months later, I received the final letter. Investigation concluded, charges filed, guilty plea accepted, probation, restitution, community service, a felony conviction that would follow him for years. I didn't feel joy. I felt relief, the kind that settles into your bones and stays there. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't plotted elaborate revenge. I hadn't tried to hurt him back. I simply told the truth and let consequences do the rest. The bank reversed the charges. My credit was restored. I refinanced my life without him in it. The last message he ever sent me read, "You didn't have to take it this far." I never replied, because he took it far the moment he decided my identity was his to spend, the moment he lied to my face, the moment he chose himself over us over and over again. Some people think revenge has to be loud to be satisfying, but sometimes the most powerful justice is quiet, legal, and irreversible. I didn't destroy him. I stopped protecting him from his own actions. There's a difference. If this story hit home, like this video and subscribe for more real stories where justice actually wins. Comment below, would you have reported your spouse or handled it differently? And share this with someone who needs to remember love is not an excuse for silence. Trust should never cost you your future. Thanks for listening.